Hey guys, my name is Ethan, and last summer my family and I went on vacation to a remote cabin by Willow Lake, also known locally as the Lake of Whispers. It was supposed to be a peaceful getaway, but it turned into a nightmare. Here's what happened. We left the city early in the morning. My parents were super excited about this trip. Dad kept talking about how it would be good for us to disconnect from technology and bond as a family. My little sister, Emily, who's 8, was just happy to be going to a place with a lake. She loves swimming. The drive was long, about 6 hours. The roads got narrower and bumpier as we got closer. Finally, we arrived at the cabin. It was old but charming in a rustic way. The lake was right behind it, surrounded by dense woods. I remember thinking it looked kind of eerie, even in broad daylight. Mom and Dad unpacked while Emily and I explored. The lake was still and quiet, too quiet. Emily wanted to swim right away, but Mom said we should settle in first. The first day was pretty normal. We swam in the lake, had a barbecue, and played board games. By the time the sun set, we were all exhausted. Emily and I shared a room. She fell asleep almost immediately. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up to a strange sound. It was like whispers, soft and barely audible. I sat up and looked around. The window was open, and the breeze was rustling the leaves outside. I figured it was just the wind and went back to sleep. In the morning, Emily was unusually quiet. When I asked her what was wrong, she just shrugged and said she had a weird dream about the lake. I didn't think much of it at the time. The next night, I woke up again. This time, the whispers were clearer. I could almost make out words. I got up and went to the window. The lake was dark and still. I felt a chill run down my spine. Suddenly, I heard a noise behind me. Emily was standing there, eyes half closed, like she was sleepwalking. She started moving towards the door. I grabbed her arm and shook her gently. Emily, wake up. She blinked and looked confused. Ethan? What's going on? You were sleepwalking, I said. Come on, let's get you back to bed. She nodded and let me lead her back. I stayed up for a while after that, listening to the whispers. They seemed to be calling out, almost like they were saying my name. I told my parents about Emily's sleepwalking. They were concerned, but thought it was just a phase. During breakfast, I mentioned the whispers. Mom and Dad exchanged a worried glance, but didn't say much. That afternoon, we went into town to get some supplies. I overheard some locals talking about Willow Lake. They mentioned something about a tragedy that happened a long time ago. Curious, I asked them about it. An old man, who seemed to know a lot, told me the story. Years ago, there was a small village by the lake. The villagers believed the lake was sacred. They performed rituals to appease the spirits of the water. One night, something went wrong. They say the spirits got angry and dragged the villagers into the lake, drowning them. Ever since, strange things have happened around here. People hear voices, and sometimes, folks go missing. I felt a shiver run down my spine. Could this be what was happening to Emily? That night, the whispers were louder. Emily got up again and started walking towards the lake. I followed her outside, trying not to wake Mom and Dad. The moonlight made everything look ghostly. When we got to the shore, Emily stopped and stared at the water. I shook her again. Emily, wake up. She snapped out of it and looked scared. Ethan, I heard them. They are calling for help. Who's calling? I asked, my voice trembling. The people in the lake, she whispered. The next day, I told my parents everything. They finally believed me. We needed to do something. We went back to the old man in town and asked if there was a way to stop the whispers. He told us about a ritual to appease the spirits. We had to perform it by the lake at midnight. Desperate, we agreed. As midnight approached, we gathered the items the old man had told us to bring. Candles, flowers, and a bowl of fresh water. We went to the shore, and Dad lit the candles. Mom held Emily close. The old man had given us a chant to recite. As we spoke the words, the air grew colder. The whispers turned into wails. The water in the lake started to churn. Emily stepped forward, as if in a trance. She knelt by the water and placed the bowl on the ground. Please, she said softly, let them go. Suddenly, the wailing stopped. The lake became calm. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, a soft voice whispered, "Thank you." The next morning, everything felt different. The air was lighter, and the lake looked serene. We packed up and left the cabin as quickly as we could. No one talked much during the drive home. We never went back to Willow Lake. Sometimes, I still hear the whispers in my dreams, but they are faint and far away. Emily doesn't remember much about that night, and maybe it's better that way. I don't know if the spirits are truly at peace, but I hope they are. All I know is that we're never going back to that lake. If you ever find yourself near Willow Lake, be careful. Listen to the whispers, and if they call your name, don't answer. Things were pretty normal after we got home, but sometimes I wonder if we really left everything behind. Emily seemed to bounce back quickly, like kids often do. She went back to her usual bubbly self, as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. I could see it in her eyes sometimes, a flicker of something dark and unspoken. I started having nightmares, though I didn't tell anyone. In my dreams, I was back at the lake, standing on the shore, hearing those whispers. They were softer now, almost like a distant echo, but they were always there, calling my name, reminding me of what happened. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was left unfinished. A few months after our trip, I was browsing the internet, trying to find out more about Willow Lake. I came across a forum where people shared their own experiences with haunted places. I posted a brief version of our story, hoping someone might have some answers or advice. Most people dismissed it as a typical ghost story, but a few reached out with similar experiences. One person, in particular, caught my attention. Their username was Watcher in the Woods, and they seemed to know a lot about the supernatural. Watcher in the Woods sent me a private message, asking for more details about the ritual we performed. They warned me that sometimes, appeasing spirits is only a temporary solution. If the proper rites aren't followed to the letter, the spirits might return, angrier than before. Their message sent chills down my spine. Had we done something wrong? Was that why I kept having those nightmares? Life went on, but the uneasy feeling never really left me. School started up again, and I tried to focus on my studies and hanging out with friends. Emily seemed fine, but every now and then, I'd catch her staring off into space, her expression blank and distant. It scared me. One night, as I was finishing up my homework, I heard a soft knock on my bedroom door. It was Emily, clutching her stuffed bunny, a worried look on her face. "Ethan," she whispered, "they are back." A cold shiver ran down my spine. "What do you mean?" "The whispers," she said, her voice trembling. I heard them in my room. They were calling my name again. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Okay, let's go tell Mom and Dad." We went downstairs to find our parents watching TV. They looked up, concerned, as we told them what Emily had heard. Dad sighed and rubbed his temples, while Mom pulled Emily into a comforting hug. "We need to do something," I said, feeling a sense of urgency. "I don't think the ritual worked." Dad nodded slowly. "I'll call that old man from the town. Maybe he knows what we did wrong." The old man, Mr. Harrison, agreed to meet us in town the next day. He looked even older and more haggard than I remembered. He listened patiently as we explained what was happening. "I warned you," he said gravely, "the spirits of Willow Lake are not easily appeased. If they are calling to you again, it means the ritual wasn't enough. What can we do?" I asked, desperate. He thought for a moment. "There is another ritual, more powerful and dangerous. It requires a deeper connection to the spirits and a greater sacrifice. Are you willing to risk it?" I glanced at my parents and Emily. They looked scared but determined. "We have to," I said. "We can't let them take Emily." Mr. Harrison gave us a list of items to gather. More candles, specific herbs, a silver dagger, and a personal item from each family member. The ritual had to be performed at the stroke of midnight, under a full moon. We didn't have much time. Back at the cabin, we prepared everything. The atmosphere was tense, everyone on edge. As midnight approached, we walked down to the lake, the air heavy with anticipation and fear. The whispers grew louder with each step, more insistent and menacing. We formed a circle by the water's edge, placing the candles and herbs in the center. Mr. Harrison guided us through the ritual, his voice steady and commanding. We chanted together, the words foreign and ancient, hoping they held the power we needed. As we chanted, the lake began to stir. The water rippled, and a cold wind blew through the trees. Emily stepped forward with the silver dagger, her hand trembling. She pricked her finger, letting a few drops of blood fall into the water, as Mr. Harrison had instructed. Suddenly, the whispers turned into anguished cries. The water churned violently, and shadowy figures emerged from the depths. They looked like the drowned villagers, their faces twisted in pain and rage. They reached out to us, their voices a cacophony of sorrow and anger. "Please," Emily cried, tears streaming down her face. "Let them rest. Let them find peace." There was a moment of unbearable tension, then the figures began to fade, their cries growing fainter. The lake calmed, the whispers fading into the night. We stood there in stunned silence, hardly daring to believe it was over. Mr. Harrison nodded, a look of relief on his face. "It is done. The spirits should now be at peace." We thanked him and returned to the cabin, exhausted but hopeful. The next morning, the lake looked serene, the air lighter. We packed up and left, not daring to look back. Back home, life slowly returned to normal. The nightmares stopped, and Emily seemed to be herself again. But sometimes, late at night, I still think I hear faint whispers, and I wonder if the spirits of Willow Lake are truly at rest. If you ever find yourself near that lake, be careful. The whispers may be silent now, but the past has a way of lingering, and the spirits of Willow Lake are never far away.